I installed this fence this summer, and one of the decisions I had to make was, should I use 15.5 gauge barbed wire or should I use 12.5 gauge barbed wire? One of them costs $45 a roll and one of them's close to $80 a roll. So which one's better? What's the differences? Which one should I use? Well, I figured out the answer to those questions and I'm going to share them with you right now. So guys, obviously the biggest difference between the two, and just so you know while you're looking at my fence, I went with the 15.5 gauge. But obviously the biggest difference is the gauge, right? They're two different gauge. One is quite a bit thinner than the other. And I'll go show you a 12.5 gauge fence here in just a minute. But as you can see, these fence posts look spaced apart quite a ways, right? So on a 15.5 gauge, you can actually go all the way out to 30 feet if you want to. I went somewhere between 18 and 20. If you go 30 feet, you have to use those fence stays, the twisty things that would go in the middle, and they kind of support the fence. They're called fence stays. But like I said, I went 18 to 20 feet just because I felt more comfortable and I didn't want to use the fence stays. 20 feet is a good, I would say, maximum on this. Now on a 12.5 gauge, you're able to go anywhere from 8 to 12 feet. Okay, so this is about double the spacing on the post with the 15.5 gauge. So now you're in a situation where not only is the wire cheaper, you're also buying about half as many posts. So this is where you really start asking questions. Okay, I'm saving a lot of money here. What's the catch? Are you king of the mud hill? Excuse me, ma'am. 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 Wow, kind of rude. So this is an older 12.5 gauge fence that's on my property. As you can see, the fence posts are quite a bit closer together. These are actually at 8 feet. So like I said, you need to be between 8 and 12 feet on a 12.5 gauge fence. So those are going to be the two biggest financial type differences between the two wires. Is, like I said, you're going to be spending about 50%, almost 50%, not quite, but almost 50% of the money on your wire, and then you're going to be buying about half as many posts. So overall, you're going to be saving close to 50% if you go with the 15.5 gauge wire. Now that doesn't mean that I recommend it all the time. So for the rest of the differences, I want to go into the shop where it's a little bit warmer, and I got a couple of pieces of each of these wire that I can set up on the bench, and we can talk through the rest of the differences, and then I'll make my recommendation to the best that I can, depending on your situation. So we've seen the difference in price, right? We know that there's a pretty considerable savings in choosing the 15.5 gauge wire over the 12.5 gauge. Not only in the price of the wire, but also in the fact that you can buy half as many posts. So that leads us to the question of, okay, what am I sacrificing? And there is a sacrifice. Obviously for me, it wasn't enough of one to be a deal breaker. I'll let you decide if it is for you. But that downfall or that sacrifice is going to come, in my opinion, in repairability. And what I mean by this is well, just let me show you. All right, guys, so I'm going to try to bend this as well as I can so that it's a good comparison. So I'm just grabbing it with the pliers. As you can see, these pliers don't have any cutters on them or anything. I'm just grabbing it in the pliers, and I'm going to bend it over as far as I can one way, and then I'm going to come back on the same bend So that's 2. So you got three bends there. Okay. That's the 15.5 gauge. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. This is the 12.5 gauge wire. Do the same thing. Get a hold of it as well as I can and bend it one way. It's one bend. It's 2 bends. Three bends. Four bends. So I'm grabbing the same spot there. 5 bends. 6 bends. 7 bends. 8 bends. 9 bends. One of them broke. So one of them broke at 9 bends. That one broke at like 13 bends. So obviously the 15.5 gauge wire is a little bit, or quite a bit more brittle and susceptible to breaking wherever it's been bent. So you only really get like one chance to bend it, and you can't just go back and forth with it. Kind of like, I mean, the old wire, I was always used to kind of just doing whatever I wanted to with it. So the way I figured this out was I was installing it and I was letting it come off of the 4-wheeler, and I may have started going a little bit too fast or whatever, but nonetheless, it got a kink in it. Kind of looked like that when I walked up to it. It was bent back on itself like that. And I just got my pliers and straightened it out. Didn't think much of it. Went down to the other corner and started tightening it up. And it busted right there where that kink was. And I straightened it back out. And that's when I realized, okay, this isn't what I'm used to. So and that's why I was talking about on the repairs. Typically when I'm doing a repair, I know there's times where I've wound it around itself and then thought, okay, well, that's not tight enough. I want to make that cleaner or tighter or whatever. So I'll undo it, do it again. That's just not going to be an option with this wire. You're going to have to be, you're going to have to really pay attention that you don't bend it more than once. And then also while you're installing it, just stay aware of any kinks or anything that are in the line. And that's really unfortunate, or it could be unfortunate, because typically when you're installing barbed wire, you want a full run of wire. You don't want a brand new fence with a patch in it, which is kind of what I ended up with out there because of that break or that what I'm talking about there. But like I said, it wasn't a big enough deal to me to where I felt like it was worth taking it back or going a different route. I just knew that I had to make sure that I didn't have any kinks in my line. You know, and another thing to probably watch out for with this would be like driving a staple home on top of a post on top of it. If you try to drive the staple really deep right on top of it, you're going to put enough bend in that line to where you could, you're going to ruin the integrity of the line. So that was the only downfall or negative thing that I found with the line. The good things is it's really easy to work with for one person, which I liked. The reels are lighter, which I liked. And it looks nice. It's a really nice looking fence when it's all done. And like they said, that you don't have to stretch this stuff like really, really tight. You just pull it tight and that's good enough. So, My recommendation would be, if you're not running like buffalo or a big animal like that that's probably going to be rough on your fences, would be to give it a shot. If you're comfortable with it after hearing what I've just told you, I don't see there being any other problems. I was able to find a couple of like forums online before I bought it, and that's really all I was able to find. I didn't find any videos. I didn't find hardly any reviews on this stuff. I found a forum, and it looked like all the people that had never used it were kind of dogging it, and then the people that had used it said that it worked just fine for them. There's a guy, I remember, he said he installed his fence with it 15 years ago, been running cattle in there, and it's looks exactly like it did when he installed it. So, and I believe that. I think that's the way it'll go. You just have to be a little bit more careful with it while you're installing it or repairing it, to make sure you don't have any bends in it. So, like I said, I would recommend anybody to give it a shot. It's enough of a savings that this little downfall isn't enough to make you not want to do it, or it wasn't for me. So that's the video, guys. Hope you liked it. If you did, then hit the like button and subscribe to Dexter Ranch, and we'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.